Today's trivia question is, what color is the polar bear's fur? Transparent, so really doesn't have a color.
But I thought it was white.
Yeah, it looks white, but it gets more in depth, I guess, scientifically.
I guess if you look up close.
Yeah, like I guess the water is supposed to
Well,
be
I think it's so
color.
weird because their skin is black. So I would have thought that, you know, maybe their skin was really pale and that would make sense. I have a little white dog, and I was looking at her today and thinking, I wonder if her hair is translucent or if I'm just seeing white. But I don't know.
Well, it's actually really cool.
What do you think?
So first off, it's not only transparent, they're actually also hollow. So if you think about it, it's like you got a little hair and it's like tunneled out. And the reason for this is because it keeps them warm. It's really good at like keeping them warm. And as a matter of fact, if you look at like polar bears with an infrared camera, which is very common for like scientists to do because they're out and they're observing and they can't necessarily, you know, see it because it's against the white, and so they'll try to look at it with an infrared camera. You can barely see a polar bear with an infrared camera because it's so good at keeping the heat in. But so that's the reason why it's transparent and hollow. But the reason it looks white is because the light will actually go in and it will bounce around, and it bounces around to the point that it looks white when it comes back out. So not only is there essentially there's almost no light coming off of the bear. There's no light, there's no like cold hitting the bear. There's nothing really like hitting it and making it cold again. So it's really, really efficient.
That's
Just
cool.
goes to show how good
Wow.
nature is.
Yeah.
That it impresses me every time how amazing nature is and how well adapted to the harsh conditions of our world.
Think of like the jacket that you wear, given that you're in Colorado, I'm sure you have a jacket. And if you put it on, you don't really like, you wouldn't imagine that some engineer, because apparently I guess they're jacket engineers, sits back and says, I'm going to hollow out this jacket, the hairs in this jacket, so that it's super warm, so warm to the point that you can't even be seen on an infrared camera. No, we get fleece.
Amazing. Yeah.
That's
wow.
that's what we get.
So polar bears get all of this and we get fleece.
Yeah.
Great. Sounds
So that should humble you. Think about that. You're a human. You're the apex of evolution as far as we know, and your jacket isn't as good as a polar bear's fur. So.
And if you're thinking, well, I know, let's just go get a bunch of polar bear fur and we'll have invisibility cloaks and the warmest jackets in the world. Well, don't do that, because we could lose the majority of polar bears by 2050. And I did the math. I'd be almost 70 years old. And I really don't want to live in a world without polar bears. I don't want our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids to not be able to know that these things exist, even if you don't get to see one up close.
And if you did get to see one up close, you would realize just how enormous these things are. If you've ever gone to the zoo and seen a bear at the zoo, not even close. Most bears are not even close to the size of polar bears. Polar bears can get up to 11 feet tall. So that's about, think about one story is about 10 feet tall. So, I mean, as big as this room. And weight, the biggest one recorded was a little bit over a ton. So that's, I mean, that's enormous.
Yeah.
So if you ever got to be up close with the polar bear, you would be so surprised about how insanely big this creature is. They are enormous. They're very large, which is really interesting considering that when they're born, they're really, really small. They're way smaller than a human baby when they're born. I think they're only 3 or 4 pounds, something like that. Sorry, wait. Let me back that up. I want to make sure I said this right. They're
born at
born
1
at
pound.
1 pound. That's
So
right. So
tiny,
they're born
yeah.
at 1 pound. So they
Much
are
smaller
even
than a
smaller than, I mean.
Paula
yeah.
Deen puts more butter in her recipes.
It's true.